Poddar, who's in conversation with Mr. S.N. Subramanian, Managing Director and CEO of Larsen & Toubro from the sidelines of the City India Conference. Nisha, over to you.
Thanks for that, Prashant. Of course, I have Mr. Subramanian right here with us. Thanks so much for joining us on CNBC TV 18. Of course, we saw your results, and the market has given a thumbs up to the kind of guidance that you have projected for FY18. But talking about the guidance, in the last year, the company failed to meet the guidance for order inflow growth as well as for the revenues. Where is that big growth going to come from, which will fuel your growth so much that you'll achieve a 12% in terms of revenue growth and 12 to 14% in order flow?
Let me first try to answer the last year question. We were positive at the beginning of last year. I used the word cautiously optimistic, if you remember. And as the year went on, there were significant gains. But when demonet happened, which we sincerely believe was a very good step from the overall economy cleaning up part of the views concerned, it did have some side effects. Right. One of the business which was not very significant but important from our point of view was the real estate developer construction business, which was a fairly big business within the system, though in the overall context may not be much. When demonet happened, the cash circulation decreased. And any developer, when he does a project as an equity, borrows some money and collects significant advances. The advances went down in a very dramatic manner. When that happened, we had to slow down construction on that space, because otherwise you would keep doing, you would have huge invoices and sales, but you're not getting the money from the developer, and then you're adding to our outstandings and working capital. So one had to be prudent, conservative and careful there, which is what we did. We started slowing down projects, we even stopped some of the projects, and we told the developers, though we have a great relationship, unless you pay, we cannot proceed, because we are not in the business of finance.
So demonetization
had this effect. Yes. Second, our switchgear business is also a cash business. Yes. You're selling switches and small electrical products everywhere. The wholesalers and retailers did have a problem in terms of collecting cash at the bottom of the chain. So essentially, these two had some effect on dragging the sales down, and you see that effect. In Middle East also, because of the significant decrease in oil prices, we were advised caution by our own clients there in terms of the money getting allocated to them from the main Diwan's office or the Central Treasury Department. So they told us to go slow on some of the projects. They were not in that kind of speed at which they wanted it when we started the project. And we were warned about it adequately. And we did that. They told us to postpone some supplies. They told us not to do that thing right now, because enough budgetary support is not coming from the government, because money was getting allocated to some other purposes. So these two facts put together had a slight drag down on sales. The backlog is still there. We removed the non-moving orders. So I certainly believe that momentum will come back. It is not going to get lost.
So some of these problems will be sorted for the next year for you to get the kind of growth that you're projecting.
That's the way we feel. Second, on the order inflow side, you see, when we have an economy both in India and Middle East, which are biggest markets, are going through a fair amount of liquidity issues, capital allocation issues, and frequent elections do come in India, and money and attention of the bureaucracy and government gets diverted into winning the elections, which is a primary thing. Then you find the distraction does prevent immediate movement of projects. The amount of public interest that are there in terms of NGOs, in terms of right-of-ways, in terms of land acquisitions, forest clearances, many things have got streamlined. But there's a process and a method. This is not that in the morning you go, evening you can get it done. There's a process, there's a method, there's a proper way forward right now. But this way forward takes certain time. Right. And when that takes time, in our kind of business, project business, where a decision is to be taken today, March 31st, and it gets delayed by 15 days, it gets into the next quarter.
That's right.
And therefore, you saw that by about a week back, we released 5,200 crores worth of orders. Now, if these orders had come in by March 31st, we would have more or less achieved our guidance which we gave for last year.
Alright.
So these are, to explain, you will think it's a way of going about it, but these are the kind of things that we are trapped in an infrastructure kind of business.
All right. Very quickly wanted to understand, your numbers are also an indicator of the overall infrastructure space in the country. Where is it headed? Because clearly it hasn't turned the corner the way the market was expecting.
As I said, a lot of initiatives and proactive steps have been taken by the government. Huge projects have been announced. Just to recount, you have the EPC roads going on, you have the general road development in India like HAM projects, you have the border roads, you have the Northeast Thrust, you have the Sagar Malika scheme, you have the coastal road, Trans-Harbour, etc. Now, between the announcements and the action, there is a gap.
There's a long gestation?
I wouldn't say it's a gestation, it is a process involved in getting these projects through. Land acquisition, CRZ issues, the environmental issues, mining rights, so on and so forth. Now, one doesn't think about all this when you start a project. These are issues that come up as you go along in trying to do the project. And some of it has got significant time bearing. Somebody takes you to court, you cannot sweat it away. You have to go through the process and get it out of it. So between action and implementation, there are gaps. Day before yesterday, in one of the interviews, I did mention, I think it's high time we found cowboys within the government. Give them the horses and the resources and make them
So the bottlenecks remain, is what you're saying, and they will take some time to really, we'll take some time to come off that as far as
these are facts of life.
All right, coming back to L&T, your non-core asset sale, where is that strategy headed? Of course, valves, switch gear, some of them are considered to be on the block, but we haven't seen fruition in the sale as yet.
We have identified what is the core of L&T, what is on watch list, what is on the growth path, and what is something which we believe is non-core. Now, to be frank and honestly speaking, I am not dealing with this subject. But as you mentioned, some of the areas that we are in have been identified as something which is non-core and that can be moved away. Now, we are not in a hurry to do it. We are not in requirement of cash. These are businesses which have started 30, 40 years back, or more than that. These are part of the L&T history as we see it. There's a value to it. These businesses are still doing well within the L&T system, reasonably well. If we get the right value, we'll see how to move it.
So in FY18, are some non-core asset sales expected?
One would not want to speculate, but one would look at it seriously.
All right. Some pain points on your balance sheet, like Hyderabad Metro.
Our L&T IDPL is a pain point. Our fourth shop, which we have a joint venture with Nuclear Power, is a pain point. Hyderabad Metro is a point that we need to overcome.
So resolution for that in terms of any investor
in Hyderabad, in L&T IDPL, it's a valuation game. It's a long-term game. Being what we are, a project company, and wanting to expect results every quarter, we are now brought our stake down to 51%, and we have a partner therein. Now we are discussing within ourselves what is our strategy, how we need to go forward, what we need to do with that business. On the nuclear force shop, as you very correctly know, this was a fantastic investment that was put in. There are hardly 4 or 5 such plants in the world, and the idea was that the nuclear industry in India sees a big growth, and we thought it would. When the 123 agreement was signed, we would capture a significant part of the business, and Nuclear Power Corporation is a 26% shareholder.
Right.
Now, as it has panned out after the Fukushima incident, that industry has not moved. But recently, the government has taken the initiative to announce 10 nuclear plants to be put up by Nuclear Power, and yesterday 2 more plants have been announced with Russia.
Right.
The plans of some of the foreign investors are still in vogue, though there are some problems from Toshiba Westinghouse. They have gone into some material issues there. The plant is there. We are incurring losses. So we either wait for these projects to come up, or we decide on a strategy on what to do with that investment. On Hyderabad Metro, it's a big investment by us.
Yes.
As much as I am aware right now, the government of Telangana is heavily supporting us. All clearances are more or less come through, and 2 lines of the project will be ready for opening sometime during September, October, and we will request the Honorable Chief Minister there to see how to inaugurate it and take it forward. 1 more line will get inaugurated by next year. So from the project implementation point of view, the construction risk, as we call it, significant part of it would be over this year. Some what is left should get over by next year. Now, the investment is there on the ground.
Yes.
Now, we got to see how to make it cash viable. It's not an easy job, because purely on running the metro, it may not be viable. So there is a real estate portion of about 18.5 million square foot. We have already done about 1.5 million square foot. Another 1.5 to 2 million we are planning. There are some big real estate, the small real estate like around the stations development, malls, transit-oriented development, gourmet, so on and so forth. So there is a good leadership there which is thinking about many of these aspects.
How much can be monetized through that land?
Land is 18.5 million square foot, therefore 50% of the revenue has to come from real estate, roughly. So there's a fair amount that can be monetized, but one has to do it, one has to capture the upside of it. So that will take some effort, because it's not that on day one 18.5 million can be sold. So we will do it. It is going to be a pain point for the next 4 or 5 years, because once the project is inaugurated, it's capitalized, so the depreciation and interest will come onto the books, and we'll have to take it forward.
So no strategic investor at this point?
We have not thought about anything right now. The steady focus right now is to complete the project, to get it moving, and then we'll think about what is required to be done later.
Defense sector, how positive are you? Where is the growth and how much growth are we expecting?
Defense, as we say, is a permanent startup. We are into defense last many years. We are at the moment into making some of the casings and boosters for many of our strategic rocket programs. We are into bridge for the army, where the big vehicles like tanks and other things can move. We have a significant investment at Katupalli, where we make the naval ships. But what's happening there is we have got some programs like the offshore petrol vessels and floating dry docks, etc. But what we don't have is big ticket items, unless that's a big investment done. So to capture to recover the cost of investment, unless the sales go up and if we make money out of it, then only the depreciation, interest and overheads can be recovered. That is still...
Okay, that's the L&T manager.